Well, hello, everybody. This is Larry from the Blue Collar Nation podcast. And I'm here with my pettifogging business partner, the tech whisperer, Mr. Eric Sprague. What's happening, Eric?
What was that word?
I'm so excited. Pettifogging, placing undue emphasis on petty details. Before we got on the podcast, he was criticizing my headphones. It was quite horrible that they do not look professional enough on a podcast.
Podcast on YouTube. Larry, usually I argue with you that the words that you come up with are total crap, but I'll own that one.
Yeah. Extremely Mr. Pettifogging.
Well, you view it as petty. I view it as being attentive to detail.
Pettifogging. You miss out on the pettiness. Yeah. Make sure you drink when I make you laugh. It's all good.
Okay.
I wish you could see this. It's a mess everywhere.
Heather, I don't know if you know, Larry and I are college roommates.
Oh, so I did not know that.
We've been doing this whole shtick for 40 years.
Oh, man. It's a disaster.
Almost 40 years. So sorry to bring you.
Anyway, we got to stay focused here. We got a show going on. We got a quick sponsor of this Blue Collar Nation podcast, and here we go. And we're back. And we have the pettifogging tech whisperer who's going to take over the show right after we introduce our amazing guest today. We have Heather Ripley, co-author of an amazing book, Next Level Now.
Hold on. She's the author. No co-author. You said co-author. See, Heather, this is why I'm pettifogging.
See, this is why he's pettifogging. I'll give you that. The complete and only author of Next Level Now. If anybody can see this, if they're on the YouTube channel, I'm showing it. PR Secrets to Drive Explosive Growth for Your Home Service Businesses. Amazing book. We both read it. But Heather also has cool accolades. She has Ripley PR, specializing in skilled trade companies. She's been recognized by Forbes as a top PR agency. How cool is that? Entrepreneur Magazine list of best PR agencies in the past 5 years. And this is really cool. She's a blue belt at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a co-owner of a Jiu-Jitsu studio in Tennessee. Stand back, so she'll entertain you and teach you things and tie you in a knot. And that is pretty cool. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Heather.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, Heather,
you have the floor, Mr. Tech Whisperer.
I do? Okay. You're going to hand it over to me? Not afraid I'm going to be petty?
I'm waiting for it.
Okay. Heather, I'll try not to be petty. Look, awesome book. Larry and I both really enjoyed it. We had a pretty long conversation this morning before we came on about all right, we got to do some of these things. And look, Larry and I built our business on getting out there. But I want to start with one of the main topics that really hit me at the beginning. Was you had 4 definitions: marketing, advertising, branding, and public relations. And I'm going to guess if you put a bunch of contractors in a room, a lot of us would have a hard time discerning what one is from the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you help us with that?
I can. Yeah. So that's probably the top question I'm asked is they've heard of PR. They may associate it just with crisis planning or crisis statements, but it's really the best PR is proactive. So I like to share the definitions as earned media, owned media, and paid media. So if you kind of think of it in those terms, advertising is paid media. You're paying for specific coverage. Your logo can be a specific size. You say the specific outlet or medium you want to advertise in, and you're paying for that exactly. Marketing can be everything you're doing, from your uniforms, your logo, your truck wraps, your direct mail pieces. It also includes your advertising. PR is earned media. It's getting somebody else, namely the media, to say that you're a great company. And it's harder to do than paid media, because paid media, anybody will take money. Earned media is selling your story in a in a very strategic way to media outlets to get them to see that it's not promotional, it's informative, it's educational, but ultimately it is promotional because it helps position your company as a thought leader, as the expert, as trusted. It adds a layer of credibility that you just can't get with advertising. And then branding is kind of overall everything that you're doing to get your name out there. So it all kind of plays together. And what I've found over the years, I've been in the industry since 2008. Home service companies love marketing. They're experts at marketing. They love the newest, shiniest marketing tool. But they don't realize the power of PR to play along with everything else they're doing. So a lot of them are missing the boat entirely on PR.
Can I share?
Can I jump in real quick? Hang on a second, real quick, because you've been doing this since 2008. You must have a lot of background, and we didn't get into that at all that we sometimes do in the podcast. What is your background here? Because you have a super interesting story that goes along with what to get to this.
Yeah, thanks. So my career started many years ago now, but in marketing. And I slowly got into PR because I love writing. And ultimately in 2008, I got a job at Clockwork Home Services, franchisor of 1 Hour Heating and Air, Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, and Mr. Sparky. And they've since been bought out a couple times, but it was a great company. I was living in Sarasota, Florida, got a job as the marketing manager for franchise sales. So my job was solely to support franchise sales, build the brands on a national level. It was there that I started working with the franchise owners and really getting to know the industry, fell in love with it. I grew up in the trades. My dad's an automotive guy. My grandfather was an electrician. So I love the trades. I love the blue collar industries, but I didn't know that space. And I really fell in love with the guys and just working with them. So I started working with the contractors, and I quickly realized that none of them knew PR. They didn't know how to leverage their chambers, their local newspapers, the TV, and they all got advertising. They understood marketing and advertising. So ultimately what happened was in 2009, Jim Abrams, the CEO, said he wanted to sell the company, wanted to do something big. And I pitched, crazy idea. I said, what if we got our brands on the Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump? And Jim Abrams, for those of you who know him, no, he didn't watch TV. He didn't even know what the show was. So I went out and bought some DVDs and showed him the show. And he said, this is interesting. So I pitched it, lot of back and forth. We ended up getting on the Celebrity Apprentice in 2009, and Jim Abrams sold the company. That's kind of my start in this industry. From there, I worked for 2 other agencies. We were generalists. We worked with a lot of different people. I decided to go out on my own in 2013. And 3 of my first 4 clients were in the home service space. I worked with Tab Hunter of the Surf and Plumbers, who I had worked with at Clockwork. I worked with Mike Agliaro, owner of Gold Medal, helped him early on start CEO Warrior. So it was, and Service Titan was one of my first clients too, longtime client. So
that's a pretty good first client list, by the way.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you got the CEO of the forward of your book was written by Ara. I can't even pronounce his name. I'm sure you can. Co-founder of Service Titan.
Yeah,
and that was something that was really cool.
So anyway,
no, you got to go ahead, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, that's my backstory. I decided to start Ripley in 2013 and specialize in the skilled trades because PR agencies in general like to work with fashion and consumer brands and fun and trendy stuff. And this was really an underserved market where I felt like we can really make a difference in people's lives. And, you know, skilled trades are the backbone of America. So we're proud of what we do and we love it.
Yeah. Do you feel like contractors tend to lean towards the marketing side because you can track the numbers better because they tend to be very practical people in general? Like you just mentioned fashion and all that stuff, and like guys like me and Larry are like, oh, you know, like just let me put a certain amount of dollars in and see a certain amount of dollars back. Do you think that is one of the issues in the trade when it comes to PR?
I think that's valid, and I think that's valid for any type of business we work with. What I'm finding with contractors, especially in our home service space, in the big three, if you will, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, once they kind of see what we do for other companies, they immediately get it.
Right.
And it doesn't matter as much that dollar for dollar. They see that it's like Mike Agliaro used to say, it's like planting an oak tree. PR isn't just going to happen overnight, and you've got to kind of control how it grows. And so, I don't think that's as big of a conversation. I think that they just don't understand what it is and what it could look like for them.
Can I tell you our only PR story?
Yeah.
It made us millions of dollars. It was great, but we didn't even know it was PR at the time. We just did it. So we were restoration contractors. We flooded Larry's house on purpose. And we invited the news and the radio and the newspaper, and to our shock, they showed up. We were going to film it ourselves anyway. And our whole pitch was, if we'll flood our own house, we can dry yours out. Right.
Yeah.
And we got on the TV, and we got on the radio, we got in the newspaper, and then we made prints of those newspapers, and we rode that wave, no pun intended, for a decade, just from that one thing that we did. I mean, we had Larry's wife crying on television after we flooded the house. He got a divorce, not because of that, but well, maybe.
Well, it could be sideways,
but
yeah, contributing factors.
Yeah, I was the one that had to sell the stupid flooding her house because he didn't want to. But anyway, that, that was really PR, but we didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Just,
there's so many opportunities for contractors almost every day, and they may not understand that somebody else is interested. Or you think, oh, it's old news for us. We've been talking about adding electrical services for months. Nobody cares, but they do care because nobody outside your company knows. So a lot of those things are ignored just because they don't understand it.
So then for the average trade, what should PR look like for them? Like I think most of us are like, I don't even know where to begin with this. Like what would it kind of look like?
I just had a conversation with somebody, I think it was 2 days ago, and he had talked to all the big guys in the industry and all the names we've heard of. And he said, yeah, my goal is, we're at 3 million. My goal is 8 to 10 in the next couple of years, which he wasn't very specific, but he said, once I get to that point, I want to do some PR because, at that point, I'm going to be ready for it. But what he didn't understand, and what I tried to help him see, is to get to that next level, you've got to do things differently than you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And the one great thing about PR is nobody's doing it. So if you're in a market, chances are your competitors aren't there yet. They're not doing it. So it really is one easy way for you to stand out, because more and more truck wraps are looking awesome, thanks to companies like Kick Charge. But
yeah,
you're competing and doing the same things. PR really is something that allows you to stand out. So if you're 1 to 3 million, your PR campaign for a year may be a quarterly campaign, 4 times a year. Give it thought. It doesn't have to be some amazing thing that you're doing, and you take a year to try to figure it out. It takes our team generally about 30 minutes talking to somebody and identifying 6 or 7 stories we could tell the media. So it doesn't have to be anything amazing. You can get on the phone with us. We'll help you figure out what a good story is, how to position you guys as the expert. And then we do a campaign, a package, like press release, media outreach, get some interviews, and then they can feed on that for a few more months and then do it again. If the season changes, or if they've got multiple service offerings. So it doesn't have to be that month after month after month of trying to think of stuff. We really walk our clients through that.
It's just consistency is what it is. Like with most things in business, You just have to be consistent with your message, and then you help them tweak it this way and that way to keep people
Yeah.
thinking about you and talking about you. That's the value of what you can bring and help people do.
So
Yeah.
how do you get over the fact that, you used the word expert, and that was one of the questions. And as I was reading the book, it's like a lot of us, yeah, we think we're good at what we do, but we maybe don't consider ourselves experts, right? Like, how do you get somebody to feel like they have the confidence to say that they're an expert? I mean, compared to the layperson, a plumber may be an expert, but then they also kind of look around and be like, yeah, but I've been doing this for 10 years and I know guys that have been doing it for 40. Am I an expert? I don't know. So how do you
Yeah. That's
navigate
a
that?
very good question. And I always use myself as an example. I'm the biggest introvert you'll probably ever meet. And I'm not a big fan of, going out and being on TV. But if I'm talking about PR, what I know, I'm okay with it. I'm not the best by any means. I'm not an excellent speaker. I do trade shows. I go to these things and I speak, and then I almost always get some leads and move the needle along for the business. But there are people far better than me. It's just doing something differently. So you don't have to be the best public speaker or present yourself perfectly. Over the years, I don't want to use the word favorite, but our media favorite clients, in other words, people who keep getting invited back over and over and over on TV, are people who are real. They don't have the perfectly put together persona. They're a little
They're
awkward.
authentic.
They are authentic, yeah. And they get invited back over and over and over because they feel trustworthy. And I think if you're too buttoned up, too put together, then you don't appear trustworthy. You appear like you're a sales guy.
We see it
So
on this podcast. We've had people that are, well, no, I mean,
yeah.
we've had people that are very accomplished come on, and they're actually some of the least listened to shows. Like, we're expecting this show to blow up, right? Because everybody knows this person. And then we look at the data, and 10 minutes in, everybody's bailing. Where I could have a carpet cleaner on from Fresno, California, who's being real and
Mhm.
open, and people will listen to that over and over and over.
Yeah.
We see it on the podcast, what you just said.
Yeah, and we help our clients. We don't just throw them to the wolves. Well, we help them. We tell them what to wear. If it's an in-studio interview, how to sit, how to stand, what to do, don't chew gum. We kind of go over those best practices with them. Now, we do have clients that just simply refuse to be the spokesperson. And I always tell our business owners, you really want to be the spokesperson, at least for a little while. Be the face to the company. But if you don't feel comfortable, put your GM out there, put your operations manager, whatever. We can train them too. You just risk them building up their own brand and kind of going away if you do that too much.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
you had
agreed.
mentioned earned media earlier, and when we flooded Larry's house, I guess that would qualify as earned media. But what's the definition of that? And for service businesses, like, what does that usually look like?
It's anytime a newspaper writes about your company or quotes you in a story, you really earned that because you didn't pay for that coverage. If you're paying for a TV ad, for instance, that's paid media. But if the reporters reach out to you as an expert on, flooding or freeze coming or seasonal change, or it's so hot, it's 120 degrees out. If they're looking for an expert and they interview you either in the field or in studio, you earned that because it's not paid for. So that's what we try to do, is make sure that you're getting that earned media coverage over and over and over through all the local channels. Some of our clients are in markets where there's some cable news stations. Just getting those interviews and securing those interviews, even if it's a piece of a bigger story, those really go a long way.
Yeah,
And you can push them out on your social media and really take advantage of it.
yeah. And I would think it's more valuable than paid advertising in the sense that people view that as more more true, more real.
Yeah, because of all the people out there, that news outlet chose you to interview as the expert. So that automatically adds a lot of credibility to your brand.
Can we switch gears a little bit? Because you had a whole chapter on social media. So just to give you a little background, Larry and I are gonna use ourselves as an example, right? So we had a local service business, did well, sold it, and started basically an online coaching program. So we have really had to dig into our social media the last few years in a different way than we had to with a local service business. So, you talked a lot about how to and how not to run your social media. So maybe you could give us all a little bit of a lesson on what people are doing well and what they're doing poorly and what you think is the best way to use it, I guess.
Yeah, there's a difference between your strategy. We try to be really strategic with everything we do. You can't plan out everything because you need some as it happens type stuff. If you have a pizza party, you want somebody there taking some fun pictures and stuff like that. But you can be proactive and plan out some what we call evergreen content that doesn't really matter when it's posted. It's good content and you can keep it fresh and keep it out there. But there really is a difference between a B2C company, which is contractors talking to a consumer audience, versus B2B, where you're selling a product or a service to a business where you have multiple decision makers. So somebody like Service Titan may not be talking directly to the owner. They may be talking to several people at each company. It's a little bit, I don't want to use the word sophisticated, but you have to have a different type of messaging that would talk to multiple people. For consumer audiences, I think the biggest failure I've seen on behalf of the contractors is they're nice. They want to give this business, they think social media, oh, my niece is on there all the time, I'm just going to let her manage my social media for the company because she's got a big Instagram following. She knows it, but she doesn't understand reputation management and some of those important things, not just jumping on a trending hashtag because you might get yourself into a little bit of trouble there. We've seen jumping on something without a little bit of research. So you do still want to have a strategy, and you can have your niece manage it as long as you have somebody with a little bit more experience kind of maintaining that strategy and the messaging, the brand that you want your company to feel like out in the public's eyes. You don't want them to feel like a 20-year-old if you're 100-year-old established brand.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, and I think people get lulled into a sense that they can just throw anything up there and it's all good. Like they're not thinking strategically, like, what does this look like to the person who may or may not use me now? We see that with, I coach a lot of contractors and I'll look at their social media and be like, dude, you can't post these things. Like there are things that you should just leave for your friends.
Yeah.
And but it's shocking how many people do that. And then one of the things that you also wrote is, when there's typos, when there's grammatical mistakes, when there's all this stuff, like it might not be a big deal to you, but it doesn't mean it's not a big deal to the person reading it. And then they think about how the company really does. Because, it's that mentality that, well, how they do one thing is how they do everything. So if there's a bunch of typos and grammatical errors, well, are they bad?
You need to get Grammarly. Grammarly helps an awful lot.
I made Larry get Grammarly. There's some inside to this conversation going on right now.
Ultimately, once somebody gets to know you, it may not matter as much, spelling errors and things like that. But, I have witnessed firsthand a lot of clients over the years that say, we really want to go after this affluent neighborhood, or we want more of these types of customers. But if they're riding at a level that's below them, and right or wrong, if they see that as, oh, well, they're not very educated. And regardless of whether you're talented at your field or not, they're not going to see it that way. So, it is good to have a professional, writing the content. Now, if you have some mix-ups in in-person interview or something, that's different, because you still want to be real. But we do kind of coach that a little bit. If somebody's got some kind of little grammatical error that they say, we try to coach that out.
Years ago, we we used to sponsor the Chamber of Commerce on a regular basis to get to a lot of people, and it worked very well. It was very successful for us. And we had one of our regular clients, regular referral sources, this great guy, wonderful friend of ours.
Oh.
And he would sit at one of the tables, and we'd put flyers on every table before a presentation, just as solicitation. So we're sitting there at the table with him, and he grabs one of our flyers, and he's reading it, and he gets a pen, and he's just writing on it. He totally marked it up like an English teacher and just tossed it across the table right at us. Yeah. And just didn't even look at us like, duh, what are you doing?
We started taking a little more care and time to make sure everything was good after that.
It was, and this was the last guy in the whole world I would have expected it from, but now I realize he was quite, what's the word, pettifogging. So it was a good learning experience.
So, if you're speaking to a service provider, what were the things that you would tell them to put up on their social and things to avoid? I just threw a hand grenade.
Yeah. Avoid, if you're a business owner, you can have your hobbies, you can have your personal stuff, your family time, all of that's good on your personal page. Don't overshare. Anything that could come back to bite you. There's an old saying, like, if you wouldn't want to see it on the front page of the New York Times, then don't put it on your social media, because people do take screenshots. And whether or not you delete it, it could come back to bite you later. So just be careful of that. Now, we have had crisis situations, full-blown crises from technicians putting inappropriate things on their page.
Well, that was going to be my next follow-up question, because
that's tricky.
I cannot tell you how many times in a morning huddle I would be like, guys, I don't care what you do outside of work, but you got to realize, as soon as they get your name from us, they're going to look you up.
They do. Yeah. And a lot of the good companies, I just had Hiller out to our house yesterday, and we got an email saying, here's your technician. He's going to be at your home between 8 and 10. And I know Hiller, I didn't look the guy up, but that's what people do. So
yeah,
we have had crisis situations where a homeowner has the person in their home and then finds something questionable. And instead of calling the business, guess who they call? The media. And they say, look who's in my home. Look what he's posting on Facebook. This company shouldn't be putting him in homes. Terrible things. And it's hard for a business owner to control what your people put on their personal pages. Yeah. So it comes back to core values, trying to hire based on those core values. And we all know it's harder than ever to hire right now. You kind of have to take what you can get.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
But if you can make sure that they make their pages private, or, if there are things out there, try to talk to them, try to reason with them, because it can cost you business and your reputation, because they become part of you when they're in your home.
Okay, so let's play a game, Heather. I'm a business owner. I'm doing, I don't know, 1 to 3 million a year in my trade, and I want to start with a PR strategy. You said, like, I want to plant the seed for the oak tree, but I have no idea what that means. So maybe if we could kind of like go through the process A to Z so that the people listening can really get their head around like, oh, okay, that's how that works. And then, then obviously call you. But what does that look like because when you said, like if you had somebody doing 3 million and they wanted to do 10 and they're not going to do PR until they get to 10, it's like, well, then how are you going to get to 10?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say we're at a business that they've just kind of gotten past that, usually around 1 million, 1.5 million in a lot of trades. That's when the owner starts coming off the truck. Like they're still super involved, right? But they're probably doing estimates and marketing. But now they're at the point where they're not like actually turning wrenches and they're starting to think about growing. So let's take that person. What would you say for he or she?
I love talking to the business owners and talking to them directly because I will tell somebody if I can't help them, which usually we can, but some people are just beyond that. Usually 1 to 3 million is kind of our sweet spot. That's where they get started. That's where they start reading books. They start reading the trades and figuring out, okay, I want to get to 5 million. How am I going to do that? I know I have to do something, but I don't know what it is. So I'll talk to them and find out, what do they have going on in their business? What's their background? Did they inherit the business from their dad, from their grandfather? Did they just work as a technician, decide to start up? Those are interesting stories that the local media like to hear. Are they on any boards, or are they on any community committees? What are they passionate about? Often I find out that some of these guys are donating so much of their time and money to the local animal shelters or something like that. Anything like that, we can find out. We put together a strategy and a recommendation for them for maybe 1 month, maybe 3 months or 6 months, or even a year, depending on if they have multiple services and all of that, what they've got going on. But we'll put together a recommendation for them. Usually it's a press release, media outreach, getting them interviews, and then it's either every other month or once a quarter, something like that. For a 1 to 3 million is a really good starting point. But there's always something they're doing that's newsworthy. Or maybe they have a guy driving past 3 or 4 other companies to come to work every day. That's an interesting story for the media on why do you work with them? Why have you worked with them for 30 years? Sometimes it's those lifestyle kind of feel good stories that we can help share.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost think do the lifestyle stories even pull more than everything else.
Yeah, they do. And charity. And so many times I hear, well, we want to do good, but we don't want to tell anybody. We don't feel like that's right. It seems too self-serving. And so I have that conversation a lot, and I tell them, remember that the charity that you're donating to may not be able to afford PR. So just the simple fact that you're giving them some publicity makes your donation so much bigger, because now you're telling other people about them. You're sharing their story and probably inspiring other businesses to give to them too. So that's one area that I think is probably the single most missed out piece in all of home service, is all the good that we're doing in the industry and not telling anybody.
Yeah. I never even thought about it that way. Like if you
can give and take PR both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh, that's
it
great.
really does. And there's a way to word it where we word it from the recipient. So instead of saying ABC Plumbing donates $5,000 to organization, we do organization receives $5,000 from ABC Plumbing.
Right.
There's a way to spin that where it's from the recipient, and it just feels better to the owner of the business.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes everybody look humble, like they're really caring. They go out of their way. They're not just doing this to create buzz for themselves. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So, Heather, what questions have we missed? Right. I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff, but I'm sure that we missed some stuff. So, like, what would you tell our audience? Like, what did we not talk about that we probably should have?
The only thing I can think of right off the top of my head is for those listening that want to do PR, it's okay if you try to do it in-house. Just know that your marketing person, whether it's your marketing director, VP of marketing, whatever, salesperson, is probably likely going to have too much of a marketing message within the PR story that they're telling a journalist. And you know that happens if you send something to a journalist and then you get a response from the advertising department. We see that a lot. And it's because people are trying to do their own press releases saying, hey, we've got a $99 drain cleaning. That's an advertising message.
Right.
So if the journalist sees your name too many times in that respect, they're not even going to open your emails. So if they see you pushing out things that are far too promotional, they may get annoyed, but at least for the first few times, they're going to forward it to their advertising department to reach out to you to sell ads. So if that's happening, it's too much of an ad message.
Well, I would think too, excuse me. I would think that when it comes directly from you, they don't take that, like having you as a third party holds more weight than the company trying to do it themselves. Am I correct on that?
It really does. Yeah. And when I was at Clockwork, I was doing our own PR and I ran into that, especially having a marketing title, because they would see that and say, this person's marketing. Yeah. So it was more of a relationship building thing at that time. I had to build those personal relationships so they knew who I was and the stories that I wanted to share. But yeah, it is more credible. And we know how to pitch the stories to the journalists. We know what they're looking for and what they're not.
Yeah, no, I can see it. Look, what you do is specialized, just like all of our trades they're specialized. Like everybody has their own thing that they do well, and it's the same thing as like asking a business development rep to also be the salesperson. They're not necessarily the same skill set. Right? So all right. I want to do the little bonus round, Heather, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Do you have a couple favorite books, business books?
Favorite books? Yep. Probably the two that I'm reading right now, again, for the third time. They're old books, so don't laugh at me. I do read new books too. Double Double and 10X are the ones that I'm rereading again. Part of that's for Ripley. Part of it's for my jiu-jitsu school that you briefly mentioned. But I like having that mindset of doing 10 times what other people are willing to do. And I think that carries across throughout everything, personal relationships and the life that we have outside of work too. So
10X.
I haven't read these. You talk about Grant Cardone 10X Double Double. Is that
Cameron Harold?
You read 10X. Okay, Cameron Harold. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't read that one. That's cool.
And then last question before we let you go, because we know you're busy and have stuff to do. A couple favorite podcasts.
Well, yours, of course.
Wow.
Come on.
Nobody's ever said that before.
I am probably unusual with podcasts because I don't listen to any of them like regularly. I don't subscribe. What I do is I search for whatever I happen to be wanting to learn about. And then I listen to a bunch at the same time, or, not at the same time, but back to back, I listen to. So, I'm trying to carve out more of my time where I can have those favorites that I always tune into. But I'm weird because I just search for topics and then I listen to and try to absorb everything I can on those topics.
You were the first person to ever say that on the show.
Really?
Yeah, because
why Eric's excited because he does the same thing sometimes. He's like, this is what I'm into.
I think it's a disc profile.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the DC thing. I don't know. I'm methodical.
Yeah, I'll find something that I'm interested in, and then I just go like super deep and like don't go to bed, and then Larry will be like, "Why are you doing this?" I'm like, I don't know. I just need to know this information.
Yeah. So I dig and listen to everything.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's a great answer. Perfect. Awesome. Well, Heather, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you tell all of our listeners how to get a hold of you so that they could reach out and start their PR journey?
Yes, and I'm here. I'm willing to talk to anybody at any point in their career and be honest about when they're going to be ready for PR. But best way to reach me is email. It's HRipley, RIPLEY, just like believe it or not, at ripleypr.com. And there's also a contact form on our website that goes straight to me. It's ripleypr.com. And
Okay.
so if you fill out the form, I'll reach back out to you and we can set up a call. But I'm also all over social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. So you can find me pretty easily.
Yeah. Everybody
I'll
should
put
go
that
out
in the
and
notes as
read
well. Yeah.
Next Level Now. Good book.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Amazing book. I'm going to call you up and get some direction because I was so impressed with the book. I've got notes written in this whole thing.
Awesome.
And there's
Thank
so many things you could probably help us with at Super Tech U. So I'm definitely intrigued. It was an amazing book.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Thanks, Heather. Take care.
Thanks.